Hey, welcome everyone. Today we're going to unlock a powerful little secret in English grammar. It's a technique that can take your speaking and writing from just okay to, well, sounding like a seasoned professor delivering a captivating lecture. It adds that perfect touch of drama and formality. So take a look at this sentence. Never have I seen such beauty. You've probably heard something like this before, right? It just hits differently than saying, I have never seen such beauty. It's got this weight to it. Feels like it belongs in a powerful speech or a really important movie scene. So, why would anyone flip a sentence around like that? I promise you, it's not just to sound fancy. It's a very deliberate, very strategic choice speakers make to really drive a point home and grab your attention. Okay, here's our game plan. We'll start with what this thing is even called. Then we'll get into the nitty-gritty of how it works with negative words and only phrases. We'll even check out some super advanced formal uses, and then we'll talk about how you can start using it yourself. All right, let's dive right in. So this technique is called inversion. And I want you to think of it as your own personal grammar spotlight. It's this tool you pull out when you want to shine a big, bright light on the most important part of what you're saying. So what's the official, textbook definition? Well, inversion is simply when you reverse the normal word order. What that really means is the helping verb, words like have, do, is, or will, actually jumps in front of the subject of the sentence. And you can see this flip right here. Normally, we'd say I have, subject first. But when we use inversion to add some punch, we start with never, and then the verb and subject swap places. Never have I. It's a tiny change, but man, it completely transforms the feeling of the sentence. So you might be asking, why bother? Well, it's all about style and strategy. This is how you really emphasize a point, create a bit of drama, and get that formal, almost literary tone. For anyone crafting an argument or giving a big presentation, this is an absolutely essential tool. Okay, let's jump into the most common way you'll see this in the wild. The number one trigger for inversion is when you decide to start a sentence with a negative word. Words like never, rarely, hardly, little, these are the usual suspects. If you take one of these words and move it to the very front of your sentence to make a strong point, you have to use inversion. It's not optional, it's a rule of the game. Now, this slide shows something super important. What happens if there's no helping verb, like in she rarely eats sweets? Well, just like when you ask a question, you have to add one. So eats becomes does she eat? The inverted sentence is rarely does she eat sweets. This rule also kicks in with some common phrases. Look at not only but also. The inversion happens right away in that first part. Not only does he sing, same thing with no sooner than, which is just a formal way to say one thing happened immediately after another. No sooner had I arrived. Okay, so just when you think you've got it, there's a little twist. Things work a bit differently when we're using phrases that start with the word only. The goal is still emphasis, but the location of the inversion changes. And here's the crucial shift. When your sentence starts with a phrase like only after or only when, the inversion doesn't happen immediately. You actually wait until you get to the main part of the sentence, the second clause, before you do the flip. So let's break this down with these examples. Only after it stopped raining, see, that first part just sets the scene. Then comes the inversion. Did we play? Or how about only when he needs help, that's the condition, does he call? It kind of builds a little suspense before you get to the main point, which is pretty cool. All right, you ready to level up? This is where we get into the really formal, academic-sounding stuff. Inversion is also a key feature in formal conditional sentences, and it often takes the place of the word if. It's actually a pretty simple three-step process. You start with a regular old if clause, like if I had known. Step 2, just get rid of the if. And step 3, flip the subject and the verb. So if I had becomes had I known. The meaning is exactly the same, but the tone is way more formal and elegant. And this works with other conditional forms too. If I were to becomes the much more sophisticated were I to. A polite phrase like if you should need to review turns into the very concise should you need to review. Honestly, if you want to sound really polished in your writing or formal presentation, this is the way to do it. Okay, so we've gone through the what, the why, and the how. The next step is to stop thinking of inversion as just some complicated grammar rule and start seeing it for what it is, a seriously powerful tool you can add to your communication arsenal. So let's wrap this up with the key takeaways. At its heart, inversion is just flipping your word order to create emphasis. That's it. Remember the main triggers. Put a negative word, like never or rarely, at the front, and you invert right away. Start with an only phrase, and you wait to invert in the second part. And for that PhD level touch, drop the if and invert. That is your grammar spotlight. Of course, you're not going to talk like this all the time, but for those moments when the stakes are high, when you need to defend a thesis, make a point nobody will forget, or just present with total authority, this tool is there for you. So the real question for you is, how are you going to use your grammar spotlight?